let's do it. We're
Let's
ready.
go ahead and get started. It looks like we've got quite a few folks in attendance today. We appreciate everyone coming out. This is going to be Oteemo's first Axiom webinar to cover our new framework. I'm Eric Choate. I'm the Director of Technology. I lead up pre-sales and solutioning and AI vertical here at Oteemo. Joining me today, Hassan Habib. He is our AI guru internally. So he's one of many experts we have on hand. He'll be presenting the demo later on. So a bit of housekeeping. So because we have so many folks, we are going to mute attendees and turn off cameras for all of the guests. You will be able to ask questions throughout. We will hold the questions for the end in the respective time. If there are some questions that we can answer on the fly, we'll try to weave those into the conversation. But please use the Q&A tool rather than the chat so that we can see those and make sure that we answer everything. Anything that needs follow-up, we're happy to send out after actions and follow up with each individual. What we're going to go through today is a little bit about Oteemo's background so you can understand how we got here, what makes us good at presenting AI and building infrastructure. And then we're going to go through a walkthrough on how to leverage the platform, what it looks like from a usability standpoint, and how it benefits y'all. And then we'll go to the questions towards the end. Overall, we're probably going to use up the entire hour. We'll try to keep the demo to around 45 minutes to allow for a little bit of time for questions. With that, I'm going to move into a little bit about Oteemo very quickly. So Oteemo started 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago. We began as one of the first Kubernetes certified entities. Our commercial path really started in the fintech and healthcare sectors on the commercial side, spreading to the Department of Defense with some federal growth. There we started with infrastructure and quickly became experts in container hardening and vulnerability assessments. Later expanding to the utility sector, education, really starting to work on software modernizations and building weapon systems for the DoD directly. Around 2024, we opened up our Hyderabad offshore entity, so we have offshore capabilities to help align costs. We moved into the AI space and transitioned the company to an AI first. So everything that we do internally leverages AI. We are as efficient as possible. And we brought that into our daily lives so that we can build a better platform and understand how things are used. We have partners with all of the major cloud providers. We just became partners with Anthropic recently and are working with OpenAI as well. We've built the Axiom launch framework as a way to speed up delivery for our customers. Over the years, we've worked with a number of large entities. So a lot of these you may know, there's a lot of them that we don't have on here. Not all of them want advertised, but just to give an idea of where we're at, our focus really is the highly regulated environments. And, that's kind of where we live and have our home. What we focus on when we're doing an engagement with a customer is adoption versus impact, right? So that's really where we want to drive that story. We're not just talking about bringing AI into your environment. We want to give you a result. The way that we do that, we expect that you have real ROI somewhere around the 90 to 120 day mark, and then we grow from there. So you have measurable impact that are driving cost savings and efficiencies across your org, depending on the use cases we go after first. To ensure that we're hitting that early target in the life cycle, what we put together was our Axiom framework. Axiom is built on top of a core that has all of the infrastructure and the configurations behind it. It's very flexible, so we have it deployed in AWS, Azure, GCP, on top of OpenShift. We have different flavors that will meet your environment wherever you're at. So in addition to those, we've got 4 accelerators. So these do different things inside of the environment, and you'll see them talked about throughout the demonstration. So Shield is where we're doing our governance and our logging. Clarity is our chat and knowledge repository. Forge is where we drive development. So when we talk about development, we're going to show you that you are doing software development, you are building agents inside of it and managing versions and controlling them, as well as plugging into any of your IDE tools. So when we show that you can still use Kiro, but with Axiom in place to do the logging, we'll give you that workflow as well, right? Flow is where we manage access to everything. So that's through all the previous tools, as well as anything that you might custom build that you want access to. So all of your APIs and agentic workflows are controlled through our platform. The reason that we put this together was to show, to address these issues that we're running into with our customers. Everyone that's on a journey to adopt AI or getting ready to adopt AI has run into some of these challenges across the board. We put them into 7 buckets, but this pretty much covers the gamut. Data leakage is an issue that everyone's familiar with, using publicly available tools, using free tools. This is something that you're going to struggle with. Every policy change gives you a new chance for a leak. Shadow AI is what exacerbates that. Shadow AI, your folks using the free tools that don't have an enterprise policy prevention, in addition to having the enterprise tools in place, but someone using an unauthorized plugin with a different set of policy controls that may or may not resell your data. So there's a couple different concerns there. And compliance isn't built historically for the way that agents work. So when we talk about compliance, we're talking about zero trust across the board. We don't want to just log things that are prompts. We don't want to just know what goes in and out of the system. We want to know what happens inside of the LLMs. We want to know what happens between the agents. So a lot of these things are logged 100% by us, where other folks only do the prompts. Vendor lock-in is another issue. So what we're seeing today, the capability that you get out of this, we don't want you tied into a particular platform. The thing to keep in mind is if the government decides there's a security risk, if you need to change vendors based on cost, going with a sole vendor means rebuilding that entire infrastructure. It means transitioning your agents and moving things over, just like buying a whole new laptop. It's not an easy switch. It's an entire enterprise shift. So it's a tool shift. It's a usability shift. The interface changes, new education across your employees. A lot of things happen there. And then we've got unpredictable costs. These costs aren't just token consumption by your employees. These costs are also driven by model changes across the board. So each time a model gets larger, any vendor that improves their model over time normally adds parameters. Each time you add parameters, that means more token costs for you. Each time it thinks a little bit longer, it reaches out to a new data source, searches the internet in a different way. That's changing costs. So your escalated cost could go up 20, 30% any given week based on a change in their model infrastructure, not something that you can control or plan for. So the audit trail, I've talked about logs a little bit, and then the workforce readiness gap, we really strive to ensure that everyone adopts it quickly. So it doesn't matter how good your tools are, if you don't drive the adoption and the education across the workforce, we're going to have some issues there. So these are all things that you're going to see behind the scenes as we go through this. So how we solve these challenges, right? I've talked a little bit about these things as I'm going through. The main points that you really want to understand that differentiate this, right? As a third-party provider that can access any LLMs, when a model changes behind, when you need to make a provider change, if your access controls change, your user experience doesn't. So by using Axiom, you can adapt to changes in the market or changes in your budget, as well as controlling all of the compliance layers behind it, right? So all of these things are remediated by leveraging this platform. The other piece that goes through here, one of the differences that we'll show is how you manage your agents. So it's a very simple process to build agents. Anybody that's doing something repeatable, we can turn into an agent and allow a approval process to decide where those agents go. They can stay within their group, the organization, or the entire enterprise. So you can make those available in a very easy manner. And then when we talk about your cost management, this one's going to be huge for a lot of the upper management folks. You can see different things here. What you'll see is how much the agents are costing you, how much it would cost you with a different model, which employees are defaulting to a larger model, who's getting actual value from what they're doing. So you don't want employees just running around using tools to do nonsensical tasks that are driving up your token consumption to look like they're adopting the tools, but they're not getting the value out of it. So you can really start to fine tune which groups need access to certain models. We route all of your queries down to the cheapest viable model that will give you the best result. And then we can tie agents to any model in particular. So that routing goes from a foundational provider all the way back to a local model as needed, but that helps you manage costs and keep them in line with your expectations. So we can drive that budget as well as go around any foundational model limit. So if someone hits a limit that says you've used too many tokens in an hour, you've hit your threshold for the week, as an organization, you no longer have tokens today for this particular model, it will default to another model without causing a disruption in your workforce. Everyone will continue working. It'll just shift over to the next best model. So those are real world examples of how these things solve challenges. And we'll go ahead and step over and Hassan will start up the demo and we'll walk through how exactly this works and what our user interface looks like.
All right. All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you all for taking the time to talk to us today. What I'm going to show you today is Axiom. Axiom is our platform that allows you, it's a one-stop shop that would allow you easily to interact with large language models, build agents, manage MCP servers, manage your skills, manage the users that are using this platform all in one place. So you don't have to customize a solution. You don't have to build, different portals in different places. It's all in one place, which makes it a lot easier for you as an organization leader or as a person who wants to use AI to look at one spot and know which spot to use. But I'm going to also show you how you can take it out of that spot, out of that box, and use it in your IDE, or if you're a developer, or use it in your chat if you're using a chat, so you can interact with the system from any other existing communication platform that you have or development platform you have without having to worry about doing too much configurations. So without any further ado, let's log in. This is Axiom. This is our platform. I'll do a quick login here. Give it a second there. There we go. And upfront, just for everyone, just to be aware, the interface is intentionally the same as everything else you're using, whether you're using Gemini or Grok or whatever else you're using out there. It's going to be the exact same interface. We don't want to introduce new interfaces. We don't want to introduce new experiences. We want you to work with the things that you already have. So whether you're already used to, Anthropic or using to used to, ChatGPT or whatever, it's always going to be the same. So this is what everyone gets to see. But at a glance, and this is going to help every, organization just to understand the power of this platform. You get to pick up to talk to agents, but you also get to customize the platform to talk to any large language, provider, language model provider or AI provider you want, including but not limited to your own. And this is big because you should also, as an organization, be able to self-host your own large language models to manage the cost. You don't want to always be relying on an external provider that can just really quickly pull the rug from under your feet and say, well, that LLM is not viable anymore or is not available anymore, and you're not going to be able to use it. So that's kind of a big part. But more importantly, and this is where you start kind of seeing the platform doing things that are a little bit different, a little bit more special. I can easily switch and go into, multitude of models like Opus and Gemini and talk to them at the same time. Like I say, hi, how are you? Like this. It suddenly I am talking to both Google and Gemini, Google, and Claude at the same time. So you get to get the best of the two worlds, right? You get to switch the conversation without having this is Eric's favorite feature, by the way. He's gonna talk to you about this in a bit. You get to just kind of drop everything and go to a completely different agent if you want to, and you get to basically go and say, well, I want to, maybe I don't know, I want quality, for instance, to say. I'd say summarize this conversation. So you're basically going to go and pick up everything that Gemini said and everything that Claude said and try to summarize, every opinion that you had, right? So that's the big part here, right? The idea here is that keep you in the same place, keep you in the same spot, leverage the power of AI, not be vendor locked in a particular platform, particular vendor, or particular anything really. It's open for your organization to do whatever you want with it. I don't know, Eric. This is the stuff, right? That's what you would use, right?
Yeah, one of the things that we're solving here is the problem of enterprise adoption, right? So everyone is at a point in their journey where they've been told to do AI over the last couple of years, and you may or may not have silos inside of your enterprise that have already purchased in a particular vendor license. They might already have a Gemini subscription, they may have Anthropic, but because of the way that we're managing it, you can throw in a management layer while giving each group access to the tools that they already have purchased until you transition them over into a centralized pricing model, right? You can continue that hub and spoke model, or you can centralize it and do management above board. But it's a way for an enterprise to adopt things while other groups underneath them may already have things in flight without disrupting what they've done in their prototyping.
That's exactly right. And now just staying at the basic features, right? You still get to kind of hear, hear what's being said, copy the message, edit the message, share the message. This part here, I get to fork that message to see if visible messages only fork and go into a completely different, conversation. If you want to kind of save this or save the conversation and share the conversation with someone later, you want to add this to your memory, you immediately get to do that. You get to kind of get a new opinion, give it a thumbs up or thumbs down. Your administration team will be able to kind of see where the model is doing well and where it's not. And the same thing applies to any other kind of conversation or sub conversation that you're having along the way. Okay, so that's great, but anybody could customize that, Eric. If you have a portal, you could do something like that. I think the real power comes in when you start interacting with agents. And this is where it's going to get a little bit more interesting. Our demo here is about software development lifecycle. Imagine that you have an agent that handles all your work as a project manager in Jira, writes user stories for you, and then you have another agent that writes the code for you, and maybe a third agent that does maybe code reviews, another agent that does testing, and another agent for infrastructure. What would that look like? Do you have to jump in between agents and kind of configure this and spend so much time doing it? I'll show you in a second. But before I leave this page, if you want to switch the conversation, you don't have to go and looking like that. You could just do the at sign, just like how you kind of mention anyone in the chat. And you get to kind of, if I just type in something like, I don't know, Nexus. Nexus is my favorite guy. That's the developer guy. I get to just do this. And suddenly at the top left, now I'm talking to Nexus. But not just that. Nexus already have the context of everything that has been said so far. So you're not switching content. You're not doing anything. See, Eric is nodding his head. He loves this feature. I know that. That's why I'm going to spend a couple of minutes on it before I switch over. All right, let's start the serious stuff. So let me just kind of give everyone the lay of the land here, right? We have a Jira board. Okay, software development team. You want a Jira board to do in progress and done. You get to see the tickets across the board. You have the source control. You have Bitbucket, so you get to kind of put your code there and whatnot, all configured and all ready. Not the prettiest app in the world, and maybe that's on purpose, so we get to do things with it. But here's a little app for you, that basically says, please change something about me. There's a lot in here to do that I want you to change. So I'm just gonna go ahead and kind of give it a smaller task. I say, you know what, I wanna add a phone number, to these fields. So I have a first name, username, work email, and all that kind of good stuff. I'm just gonna add a phone number to this field in this form. Let's see what that looks like. So I'm going to go ahead here and pick up my requirements agent. That's the project manager agent. That's where it all starts. You need to kind of gather requirements. You need to document the requirements. You want people to review it and do all that kind of good stuff. So let's write a requirement about adding a phone number field into the registration form in Oteemo demo project. Let fly. Here we go.
And as we're going through this, keep in mind everything that you see as far as a user interface, the flow, the alignment orchestrator here that we're using, all of these things are customizable to your workflow. So however your developers are working today, they can continue that in this workflow, right? We're showing you how to dev and build an application or do an update to one through this process, but you can also continue to use your IDEs, and we'll show that in a bit.
Sweet, sweet. And here it is. Basically what alignment did, that's the agent name. Alignment said, okay, sounds good. I have good enough understanding, right? Small focus story. I'm going to show you later where that's coming from. It said I created a new Jira ticket for you right here. Here's the title. Here's all the details. It even gives me the link, so I don't have to go find which Jira board and which Jira instance I need to kind of look at. If I click on that link, lo and behold, I have a story right here that's ready for me to review. The most important part about this, I'm going to close this window and refresh this because I want you to see like kind of the project management level of this. You can see here as soon as I refresh the page, I have a story right here. I have a little ticket right here. It's in the to-do section. The agent must involve the human in the middle right there. So it's basically saying, does this look good? If you'd like to tweak anything, let me know. Otherwise, say looks good, start the implementation. It's already giving you the next step and what you want to do next with this. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say, well, let's move this into the in progress section and assign this to Hassan. So it's still with the alignment. Alignment is not going to do anything yet. It's not going to any implementation because it's not its job to do the implementation. We're still in the project management mode. So the expectation here is that if I go here to these Kanban boards and start refreshing, it'll take it a second there, but it will move it over to the in progress, just like it did right now, and it assign the story to me, right? If there's only one Hassan in your team, you don't have to mention the email or the last name or anything like that. Just say that name and it will go and figure that out for you. So okay, so what it's basically, well, here's the status. The story is ready, and let's go and update it. Again, it says Hassan now on it. Would you like to proceed with the implementation, or is there anything you'd like to adjust? I will go ahead. This is where the magic happens, right? This is where you have your own team of agents that are doing stuff for you. I'm gonna go ahead here and say, let's start the implementation. Here we go. So alignment as an agent knows full well that it's not a coding guy, right? It doesn't do the code, but it knows that there's another agent that it needs to hand that off to. That's Nexus. I told you I like Nexus. It's a good guy. It's right code. And Nexus now, it's basically alignment is having a little conversation with Nexus. You could actually see the little conversation that's happening between agents in here. If you expand this, see, you can see it in here, hand off instructions, right? This is what I think. This is how this is supposed to work, and so on. So I'm gonna wait for Nexus here to go ahead and do the implementation. What do you think, Eric? That handoff is pretty cool.
Yeah, and while we're going through, it does absolutely log everything that happens. So our logging right now is 100% immutable and it's 100% complete. So it is all of the LLM retrievals and prompts. It is all of the conversation in between the agents. So when you start working on that, what you can do with it is up to you, right? So you can use to improve each agent over time, pick which models are going to be your best case. If you have an incident, you have a complete, thorough list of everything that happened. You can figure out where it happened, when it happened, who did it, and what access controls were violated. We use that to do policy enforcement, access controls. We also use it to monitor what an agent tries to do. So if the alignment agent actually tried to go out and write code, we would stop it, right? You can choose what you do there, kill the workflow, stop it, bring a human in the loop, call cyber, whatever you want to do. We have that ability. But it also allows you to fine tune your models over time. So those localized tools, as they get better, you can replace the foundational models and save even more.
Exactly. And I know with the question of logging, absolutely, you get the artifacts, you get the auditing. You want to know for a fact that if something went wrong, because obviously, as you can see right here, agents are becoming more agentic. They have agency, they take actions and make decisions. And you want to know how this decision was made. You want to know how these things happen, right? Looking at the flow here, it's basically saying, let me start by exploring the existing code base. Let me understand what happened. Big problem in a lot of agents is that, oh, let me just work with the stale code that you have in your local machine. This is live. This is looking at the latest and greatest in your code base to make sure that it's not making or overriding someone else's features or decisions. And now it's telling you, I understand the code base. Now let me create the commit. Let me commit these changes. Let me create a branch. Lo and behold, we have a branch right here. If I go, and not just a branch, a pull request. If I go up here and look at the pull request, I see a pull request opened here on my behalf because it's my token. I am the person logged in. The agent is only authorized to access the things that I have access to, whether it's the first contact agent or second contact agent or in contact agent. Big part and a big backdoor and a big security issue when it comes to people, kind of creating agentic systems without really paying attention to who this agent is acting on whose behalf. Kind of a big deal. So this is a PR that's been opened. You can look up in here and you can see the changes. It's indeed writing the changes. It's writing the test, updating the tests, making sure that everything lives up to that. And it's leaving you comments there. Not big fan personally on the comments in code. Code should be self-documented, but it did that because we didn't tell it to do otherwise. Skills here becomes the new programming language for these agents. When you write proper skills that are truly reflective of your organization knowledge and your organization guidance and direction, your agents will act based on that. Otherwise, sometimes they may or may not fill the gap depending on the configuration. We're going to talk about the configuration of the agent very soon, depending on how creative do you want it to be.
With those logs, you'll also be able to see who wrote code, right? So when I say that, I mean, was Hassan approving LLM generated source code, or did he have to hand write certain things? And each time you have to hand write something, you want to make an improvement to your model. You want to choose a different model, or we need to take a look at the prompting because you want to hand generate as little as possible going forward while making sure that the source code generated by the models is up to your organization standards.
That's
And
exactly
then
right.
the agents that we're showing here are included out of the box. We will customize things to your organization. It's a mixed bag, right? So when you get access to Axiom, we are configuring it to your environment. We're hosting it for you. We're helping support and making sure that you get that adoption. All of the LLMs you can choose, right? So we have access to everything. We can make sure that we tailor those user licenses, use Foundry, use Bedrock, whatever you want to do. So the agents and everything come out of the box. We can tune those over time.
That's exactly right. And just to kind of give a better picture about this, that you have this system. The system allows you to create agents. You'll see how easy this is. It's actually easier than making a cup of tea or a cup of coffee. Super quick, super easy. If you know what you're doing, and we're here to walk people through it and kind of train people. But the bigger part, like Eric was just saying, your skills, right? The skills that reflect that. What are your engineering standards? What are your user story standards? Let's just say, hey, wait, we have a lot of tribal knowledge. We don't have standards. Guess what? That's exactly what we're here for, to sit down and help you figure out what skills needs to be written, what standards needs to be established. And it's kind of helping you even with or without AI. You want to document all that tribal knowledge that may make a single person a single point of failure in your organization. So when they're on vacation or out of town, you want to document that knowledge anyway. So it's a good procedure to happen and an amazing side effect as you're working on AI acceleration. So here's the deal. Okay, enough with the talk, show me the code, right? Talk is cheap, show me the code. The agent wrote the code, right? But I have another agent in here. It's a senior software engineer agent called Linz. Linz takes a little bit of time because it likes to look at things at its own sweet time and make sure that it looks at every PR that gets opened. I'm not going to touch Linz here. I'm not gonna go and talk to Linz here. I'm gonna go here and just refresh this page here. We don't know. It depends on, how Linz is feeling today about reviewing PRs. There you go. So this is to show you something. I have another agent that is being called externally from the pipeline, from the PR into Axiom. That is the point that I was trying to make about if you have an external system, if you have a chat, a system, a storage base, whatever that may be, you can call right back into Axiom. You're not limited to the box. The box is just so you can have everything right in front of you so you can manage everything. And as you can see here, Linz is basically saying, well, here's the risks and the watch outs. Phone requires a value to start. You can see the suggestion. It's a senior principal engineer. Its job is not to write code. It looks at the code and kind of summarizes and makes it a lot easier for you to look at huge chunks of code. Because here's the deal, guys, for everyone watching, here's the deal, everyone. If you're pushing code through agents, you're going to push hundreds of thousands of lines of code a day. GitHub used to have 1 billion lines of code a year. Last year, they got 9 billion. So if you let all of that fall on your senior engineers that are reviewing the code alone without any AI assistant, they're going to be a bottleneck. It's going to be overwhelming. You want them to prop up the things that they care about and everything that's established as a standard while you're still human in the middle have to approve. And as you can see here, the agent is basically telling me, review this PR, then either merge it or send me feedback. I'm not going to merge it. I'm going to say it looks good to me. Go ahead and merge. Let's see the power of the agent. Let's let the agent. Let's say, for instance, I'm in a meeting. I can't open my laptop right now. I got my phone with me and I'm in contact with Sentry. I'll be like, you know what, Sentry, I can't look at it right now. Go ahead and merge. You get to have it from your phone. Here we go. So just so you understand, alignment is still the manager of all this. And when I sent the message as alignment, the project management agent received the call, but I said, wait, that's still not my business. Let Nixus go handle that for me. Here's what Nixus is doing for me. It went ahead and said the PR is merged. So if I go up here and basically just look at the status, it says merged for request. Yes, it is truly merged. And as every PR, when it gets merged to the main branch, it's going to kick off a process for deployment. Remember, we have the app in here. We still need to see that app having that new phone number field in there, right? So now it's kicking that call. What Nixus is doing for me, just being a good citizen, right? Going out there and saying, "Hey, let me watch that pipeline for you. You look busy. You seem to be on your phone. You may be in a meeting, maybe traveling. Let me watch that pipeline for you. If it merges right away, I'll let you know. If not, just let me check and I will check for you." What do you think about that, Eric? Just going above and beyond and helping you actually accelerate. I think that's a pretty good deal.
One of the big one of the big benefits here is it's a little bit different than using something like Codex locally, where I can take a look at the Git repo, but this is also managing my Jira tickets. It's also helping my storyboard. So the PM can go in there and see. I can generate a report for the CEO to give exact up to minute progress on all of the projects in the organization. And then you can dive down into it to see who's leveraging the tools, what story points are being worked, what's a blocker, right? So you know where to insert yourself, and you can provide all of that information up the chain. In a little bit, we'll show how easy it is to build and replicate your agents inside of the system.
Exactly.
So right now, we've got a question about who are our competitors, right? So our management layer that we've built here is not a direct competitor with an IDE. It is not a direct competitor to someone using Claude. It's a layer that provides you the flexibility and the security so that you can deploy this to your enterprise in a responsible way, right? So you are not tied to a specific vendor, just like you want all of your tools to be agnostic, right? You don't want as little proprietary as possible so that you have options. As an enterprise, you can change to another provider. I can choose to save more costs next week. Those are all things that I can do. If I switch this all to using local models, I save a ton of costs, but I have a quality trade-off, and I can assess that and make that choice. With other vendors, you may or may not have that choice, right? If you only have a handful of models, even when you have something like an open router where you have access to everything, you still don't have that routing mechanism to drive down your token consumption to a cheaper model. That's not what they're about. They're about selling you tokens. So really we have a little bit of competition in the compliance space, but the way that we're doing things are to solve those harder enterprise challenges. So we're pretty unique in that aspect. And when we talked about the chat earlier, Hassan said it was my favorite thing. It is absolutely my favorite thing to be able to have a conversation with Anthropic, and then switch to a Gemini model when I have a question about the user experience because it Google has seen every user interface on the internet. So it is better at user experience. So when I want to have that conversation, I continue the conversation. It never changes. The context just is uh, moved away from a particular model, and I can change on the fly. It doesn't interrupt me. I don't start a new chat. I'm not summarizing. It has the full context with fidelity.
Exactly, exactly. And Eric does a lot of our work, our proposals and whatnot. He needs that tool. He has to use it. It's not an option, right? He's, if we're not giving our customers the very best out of every possible frontier model out there, what's the point of it at all? Especially with platforms that allows you to integrate with everybody. You're not limited to anyone. You don't even have to switch a tab on a screen. You're just right there. Okay, so Nexus is telling me, the PR is merged, unit test, deployed to Firebase, hosting done, and end-to-end suite started, right? Let's check on the testing. Let's check on the testing status. And
Yeah, as
while it's
that's running, we've got a couple more questions. I'll pop in and answer here.
yeah,
So the model switching is actually twofold. We've got two different mechanisms. We can route everything through an LLM that we've chosen to help pick and choose which model is best for each particular use case. We can predetermine by rules and configuration changes, which we'll show when we talk about the agents, about which agents use one like by default, or is that best for a particular task. So we can define those by rules based on what our parameters are, cost or quality. And then the next one, the ideal users. Really, our ideal user is the enterprise layer, right? We are talking about the enterprise, and everything that we're going to go through addresses how a developer, how it supports your development team, how it supports your business, your BD team, how it supports the HR team, right? There's different use cases. There's agents that can be built for anything. We're just being very flexible. So we are the infrastructure to which all those custom tools will be built. And when we go through an engagement, our first 30 days of discovery, we talk about that, right? So we talk about, are you trying to save money on developers? Maybe you don't have a custom development team and it's all about getting information to the C suite because you're a startup that needs to make decisions quicker, right? Is your HR team struggling with something in particular, getting the right PDs out there? And we need to do a little bit of fact finding and a little bit of intelligence to reshape our position descriptions, right? So those are all things that we work through. When we define those, the ROI that we want to hit at the 90-day, 100-day mark, 120 days, we're going to drive towards those, right? So we're doing the infrastructure, picking the use cases, and then when we deploy for you, here are the use cases and here are the metrics that we're delivering. So you know that you're saving money, you know that you're getting the efficiency that you expected. The agents that we build inside of Axiom, I saw one come in the chat,
I
absolutely
can I
portable,
can
right? They're
yeah,
prompts, and we'll talk about that.
I can take that one. So your agents are essentially a runtime and a configuration. Portable meaning you want to put them outside of Axiom and make them live in another environment. What Axiom gives you is that you can integrate with your existing external agents. If you already built agents, let's say you're already halfway through your AI journey and you already built a lot of agents outside, maybe in Azure Foundry, maybe in Amazon Nova or whatever else is out there, right? You don't have to go rewrite those agents. You don't have to go reprogram those agents. You can still integrate those agents back into Axiom and you can manage those agents back into Axiom. So you get to build on top of where you already are. This is kind of a big deal because, I understand and I know how much investment and time it takes to just learn a simple platform like Microsoft Agentic Framework or Strands or LangGraph or whatever else is out there. You already did that hard part since 2023. You jumped on that wagon. You're ready to integrate and accelerate. We want to help you finish that journey, not start back from square zero and start building again. That's not the purpose here. Going back into the status, right? It looks like so two things happened while we were talking, right? So I asked about, the Nexus, the developer agent basically went ahead and kind of, watched the pipeline for me. He said, by the way, the end-to-end suite's still going. I asked it a question. I said, let's check on the testing status. Watch this. Alignment now redirected to a completely different agent. It's called Sentry. And Sentry is the tester. That's the QA agent. It has its own skill sets, it has its own management, it has its own world. And its own job is to basically go and make sure end-to-end testing is solid. It gives you the link to the app where the testing is happening, which user story has worked. It even gave me a little nice summary at the very end here about all the things that we've done since the beginning of that demo. So now, moment of truth. Do I go to this app right now? This app, remember, that was the app before the development. If I refresh this app, do I get a phone number field? Let's take a look. I'm going to go ahead and refresh. Lo and behold, here's a phone number right here. I didn't have to write one line of code. I didn't have to touch Jira. I didn't have to touch Bitbucket. It's all agentic, truly agentic, multi-orchestrated. What do you think about that, Eric? I think that's it's kind of a big deal. I think it's a
Yeah, this is actual agile development with CI/CD, right? So this is how you're developing code in this pipeline. It's not the same as just having a developer push to your repo and having to manually go create their tickets, having to manually do all these things. So all of the work that you have to do over and above developing code and making changes and making decisions is removed so that you can just do the things that make you most effective.
exactly. I think there's one more task left. Can you guess what it is? Like a wild guess. What should we do? What was the last thing to do? We got to close that story, right? I mean, this thing is hanging there in the air, right? Let me just go here and say everything
Let's
looks perfect.
let's close it up and start looking at agents and the management piece because I'm sure there's folks here that are real interested in to see
They're
our
really,
cost.
they're really kind of squirming. They want to really know what's going on. Okay, everything looks perfect. Let's close this story. Here we go. By the way, Jira doesn't have the concept of user stories. I'm still on the ADO, Azure DevOps mindset. I love how in the very beginning it basically said to me, well, there is no such a thing as a story. I think you mean a task. Oh, I love that, Eric. It just like, you know what? Let me build on top of what's already is. Let me not stop everything just because you said the wrong thing. Isn't that pretty cool? I think it really is trying to get you to the finish line right there. So that's basically said, like, hey, look, here's the final piece, moving to close. So if I go and refresh the screen here, here we go.
Yeah, that translation about the language is really helpful when you're looking at enterprise flexibility. So if everyone starts using this tool to write their tickets and you're using that board just as a status bar, right? You're now using your Kanban board completely differently because the stories and the progress, everything's being done by the agents. You can now swap that tool out. So if you don't want to pay for a Jira license next year, you can switch to something that's open source. You can switch to something that's slightly different that still gets the task, but your users don't have to learn the new tool. The agent
That's
learns the
exactly
new
right.
tool and just transitions their work.
That's exactly right. You can share this with your team. Oh, I want to export completely outside of that flow, or share this so you can kind of give the entire end to end. Look how many people we talk to right now. We talk to we conducted requirement development, testing, right? We talk to Lens, on indirectly, to review our code. Everything is in place. One last thing before we switch to agents, because I really want to show you the whole thing. I have also another agent called Conduit, right? And what Conduit does, check the system status. Conduit is your on-call guy all the time, sitting there 24 hours, looking at your systems and making sure that your system is in a good shape and a good place. What Conduit does is that it goes and checks the status for you. If something goes down or the system is not ready, Conduit will jump right in and be like, hey, something is down. Let me go and investigate and figure out what happened. Let me fix that for you. Are you
Yeah, this
ready
is
to?
the stopgap. So when you're doing CI/CD, if one of those gets merged and your application breaks, how do you roll back, right? So you want to double check to make sure it stays up, but you can also use that to roll back code when something makes it through, and that's going to be very rare. But that's something you still have a user in the loop. They may make some custom changes, and it may not work out every time.
I like how it just went straight as a user to the app. It didn't just kind of look at a pipeline or the cloud. They were like, let me just kind of attack this as a user. Let me just see how the system is doing as a normal user. Because sometimes you get kind of false positives right? You get an alert, the system is down, but it's not really down. There's some hydration going on, and all of that good stuff. So okay. So with that in mind, let's go and jump in to the agent creation, right? This is the biggest part. Let's open up this window here and let's talk a little bit about the agent creation. How do you create an agent? This is not exclusive to software developers. This is for everybody. Let's say you are someone who is a hiring manager and you want to review resumes. You can build a slew, like an entire swarm of agents. One agent will review the history, one agent will look at the GitHub, one agent will go and check out the work history. All of that stuff you can build as a pipeline. The software development flow that we're showing you here is just an example of that, but you can build it however you want. So let's just go ahead and look what an agent actually, what does it take to actually to create an agent, right? I'm going to create an agent here. I'm going to call him John. John, you tell jokes. Agent that tells jokes. I'm going to make it really light and simple just so everybody, you get to kind of pick up the category here. I'm going to show you later what that category does. This is a big part. And then in the instruction here is that your name is John and you tell jokes. That's it. That's your instruction. Sweet and simple. I can go down here and set up the brains for John, right? I can basically pick up whichever provider I want, Google, Anthropic, my own LLMs, my own locally hosted LLMs. I get to determine, well, do I want John to think too much so it can burns and reserves 2,000 tokens when it interacts with the vendor? No, I don't want to. This is a thought visibility. There you go. You get to kind of show, do you want it to show what it's thinking out loud? Do you not want it to show you what it's thinking? There you go. Here's the deal. You get to kind of control the temperature, and this is a big piece. We basically tell people, you get to control how creative do you want it to be. If you go to 0, then you get a robot, right? And it's not really thinking or doing anything. It's only following instructions. Okay, I set it up to Sonnet. I said it's with Anthropic. I get to set up the rest of that agent. So I get to go down here and basically say, here's a fallback mode model. Basically, this is one of our kind of bigger features in the system. You get to say Anthropic is expensive, but if the question that's coming through is trivial, or it maybe has PII, or maybe has some information that's not supposed to go to an external AI provider, then go ahead and fall back to your own local model or any model you'd like to have. So I have my own little hosted GPU instance in Google that basically runs this. What about how the agent is supposed to detect this thing? Remember, English now is the new programming language. So you get to describe to it and let it detect. How does it know what is being sent right now falls back into that fallback model or not? So I'm going to say, hey, user greeting. If the user is greeting me, then go ahead and fall back. This is not worthy of going all the way and burning tokens to say hi, hello, and anything like that. You get to decide whether you want to show back a fallback indicator or not. That's your option. I'm going to enable it in here. You get to determine whether your agent gets to leave the perimeter of your organization or not. This one is big, right? Do you want your agent to go search on the web or not search on the web? That's kind of a big deal, right? Because if you want it to stay within your local models, it's not just going to go on its own and go search the web on without asking you. You want your information and compliance, right? Eric, that's compliance. It's a big piece of this, right? I think that's kind of important. Go ahead.
Yeah, one of the things as he's going through, when he clicked create agent, this agent already exists. All of this additional context, you can keep it super simple, just give it a description of what you want, or you can go through and fine tune it, or drive down your requirements here. You can always ask your chat that you're working with to give you the prompt. Like, hey, this is a thing that I've been working on today. I really like the results that we came up with. Can you turn this into an agent skill so that I can share it out with the rest of my team? And it will build you the prompt to paste in here and click save. And now you have an agent that you can approve for your group or your enterprise use. And one of the things, well, we got a question about the forecasting for rollout and adoption, right? Our timeline is we try to hit the 100 to 120-day mark, right? That's design and discovery. That's understanding your enterprise, adapting to whatever tools, whatever cloud provider you have, and then building out the infrastructure as well as 2 or 3 agentic workflows. So you will have agentic workflows that are giving you value at the end of that, and that's that normally can save a ton of costs, right? Your first three agentic workflows should have significant impact on your organization financially or from a time standpoint. So that's really what we're looking at, right? We try to hit somewhere around 90 to 120 days to provide value, and then your adoption continues from there. It can look like additional use cases. It can look like streamlining your development and your code quality standards. So we're getting close to time. So we've got to speed up just a little bit to finish the agents because we do want to show how easy it is to manage this
Exactly.
environment for you compared to others.
Exactly. Thank you, Eric. Just real quick, so you get to enable whip search. If you want to enable whip search, you get to choose, one of the existing kind of whip search APIs, or just choose your own. Do you want to go with your own API? You get to do that if you want to actually do it. For people that asked about compliance, there you go. You get to save the artifacts, you get to save the code, you get to save everything that has been said. The artifacts saved for your compliance team, for track records, for everything else. That's the game. That's how you do it. And then, you get to include any existing code. Do you want your agent to look at certain files and search through these files? You get to just literally just upload a file, and this agent will always have this file with it as it goes. Do you want your agent to take actions? These are your MCP servers. You see how it was talking to Bitbucket, it was talking to Atlassian, it was talking to all these different systems. That's how you do it. You configure your businesses, you configure your systems to have MCP servers on top of them. That's Model Context Protocol. And then the agent will understand which system to call and how to call the system and what to do with that system. Now, let's just say that a lot of people probably ask this question, well, we don't have MCP servers. Is it going to take us 3, 4 years to build MCP servers on top of every system that we have? Not really. If you don't have MCP servers, you have two options. We can configure them as tools so the agent can talk to these tools, but also we can wrap them up in a customized MCP server so you don't have to do that kind of effort. But most of the systems that you're already using, especially if they're out of the box systems like Salesforce, Teams, Slack, whatever it may be, all these systems already are coming with their own MCP servers. So all you have to do is just tick the box and say enable, right? Okay, I'm going to add.
Everything that he's showing here can be pre-configured.
Exactly.
So for compliance, if we want to always save all artifacts and we don't care about storage consumption, absolutely. We can just make those default so that the user can't edit them because every different organization, every different person can have a different set of rules.
Exactly. Do you have any questions? Are there any questions in the chat, Eric?
We
I'm
did
trying to.
just get one
Let's do it.
modifying, augmenting prompts before sending to the provider. When we say build your own LLM, do you mean self-hosting? So yes, we can self-host. Yes, we can fine-tune the models based on all of the workflows, all of the different things. It is possible to train a model from scratch. Not really recommended because everything else
You're
has
doing
a
rocket
has a
science.
leapfrog ahead.
Do
So
that for.
really, you would want to
Yeah,
take a larger model, quantize it, and then fine tune it rather than starting from scratch because it will save you exponential dollars, right? And we can absolutely modify prompts as they go out. We have agents like Redactor and things that protect IP from your organization. So even if a user accidentally types in a social security number, that won't make it to Anthropic or OpenAI. It will get removed and it will let the user know, right? We can choose how to intervene, whether we let that prompt go through, we block it completely and let them know that they put in something inappropriate. All that's logged again, right? So,
that's exactly right.
all right, let's get over to the costing because we have just a few minutes left to make sure that they get to see that dashboard.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a couple of minutes real quick here. Every agent needs a skill. You need to write MD skills. You get to add the skills here. You have a marketplace of skills that you can manage in the system. These are big, very, very big. This is a new programming language. So here's the skills. There's how you manage the skills. But lastly, every agent for compliance needs to have an owner, and you get to put the name and the email of the security group that has this owner. And probably some of you were wondering, how did you do that handoff? There it is. You get to do the handoff to any agent in your system, but not just that, you get to describe what kind of relationship happens during the handoff. I get to expand this box and say, here's what you need to hand off, here's when you need to hand off, and what kind of parameters you need to pass there in order for that handoff to happen. The multi-agentic approach in the system is not one and done kind of thing. There's sub-agents, there's mixture of agents, and there's, the sequencing, which is basically you go and say, no matter what request I do, I want you to go in that particular sequence and hand over from one agent to the next, just like that resume review kind of pipeline. So that gives you the deterministic aspect of agent to agent to agent to node kind of approach. Okay, everyone's talking about token costs. Cost is a big problem for AI, right? You need to be able to manage tokens. You need to be able to see who's using what, when they're using it, and whatnot. There's another side of this, which is basically the administrator portal. And this administrator portal gives you all kinds of configurations and all kinds of powers to control who's doing what in your system from a compliance standpoint. You get to create security groups, but more importantly, you get to see who is using the highest amount of tokens in your system and what kind of models are being used the most in that system. But also you get to see the entire cost end to end in terms of token, in terms of money, in terms of requests. You get to see the 90 days, 7 day. Do you want to see it based on cost increase, request increase? Of course, your locally hosted models don't add up to nothing except for hosting. What do you think, Eric? Does that work?
Yeah, so remember, we can control all of the rate limiting, all of the token budgets and things here. The other piece that we have 1 minute left, and we've been answering questions on the fly, so that's fine. We should show how to do the configuration and the automated compliance side of it.
Exactly, exactly. Um, I should just show the grant access as well, should we? I know we're out of time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
let's go through that very quickly.
every single feature you guys saw in the system right now, and every other customizable feature you want to add in here is an on and off based on a group. So you have two axes here. You have the group level and the feature level. So you get to switch. Engineering can do things, marketing can do things, your HR can do things that other people can't. Full end to end, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. The system has so many different features, so many different capabilities in it that we can't wait. If you want to see the rest of the features and the capabilities, let's get you scheduled for to talk to your groups and see your business case and build a system specifically for you, customized, built specifically for your use case.
Yeah, all these things make it very easy to adapt, to let different organizations underneath your structure to manage their own requirements, right? To give different engineers different roles, to give for different users different roles. So being flexible and automating all of your compliance. If you have SOC 2 compliance and the regulations change, we automatically scan your environment. We pull the newest requirements, we pull the newest changes and test your environment against it. So we're doing all those in the background with agents, and we look forward to supporting everyone. If there's any questions that we didn't hit that were out there, if anybody wants to throw anything last minute in the chat.